But having grown up the son of a worship pastor and in the church and going to a Christian school, was there ever, like, do you remember just kind of always being in love with Jesus, or was there ever a point where you're like, okay, my family's faith has became my own, you know?
Yeah.
And how young were you when that? I'm asking selfishly because my son is 9, and I'm like, dude, I don't want him to like go in the world and develop a testimony or have some gnarly crisis of faith, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like you're fairly well adjusted and you've just kind of always loved Jesus. Is that a fair assessment? Before we get into this conversation, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ruslan, and this channel exists to encourage, empower, and inspire you to live a life that blesses God.
Ruslan.
I've always believed in God and always wanted to honor him. And I always thought that was he is reality. I'm sold out for life. Like the reason why it all exists, I think the Bible gives us those reasons. The reason for life, I have yet to find a story that resonates in my soul as beautifully and truly as a story of God coming in the form of Jesus, dying for my sins. I know I needed a savior, and I believe with all my heart Jesus is that savior. And so yeah, I grew up in the church. I think getting an opportunity to serve in the church at a young age when I was 13 was a huge saving grace for me. Not just because I loved it, but I think it just knowing that it was special and having parents that told me, hey, this is special, and like don't like it can go away too. Like your trustworthiness is such a huge part of what you do. Like pastors, if they're going to invite you in, or communities, or you know, they would just kind of really. I remember my mom talking to me a lot about it. Like remember, like if you lose your trustworthiness, like people aren't going to want to put you in front of their congregations. People, you know, like so there's an honor and a trust. Like you need, and then you're the only one that can be responsible for that.
Wow.
And I kind of carried that as a weight because I really, from an early age, I loved. When we moved from Orange County to San Diego is when I picked up guitar when I was 12. And that's when I found Jesus, really. I knew God. But when I found a relationship with Jesus, singing songs like I Could Sing Your Love Forever, Shout to the Lord, these 90s worship songs, just learning how to play guitar in my room, I experienced I was aware of the presence of God for the first time through these worship songs in my bedroom without I wasn't learning guitar to be in arenas one day, to be a traveling musician. I just had nothing else to do. I was just a lonely kid, and Jesus found me, and I found him. And even after my youth pastor had to shove me on stage to even get me to play. I was not wanting to be on stage. I would rather like be at home reading a Narnia book or something, you know? But I remember after I kind of got over that fear and started learning these songs well enough just to worship. And I remember the first time I opened my eyes and I saw this crew of 20, 25 junior high kids around me all sing, like felt like the whole room was singing and some were standing, and I just remember God's pleasure in that moment and just thinking, I want this for the rest of my life, you know, and that wasn't like, okay, now I'm gonna do this. It was just like, what I just want to draw people to God. I want to draw closer to God through these songs. That's how I find him. That's how I found him. And so just chasing that all my life really kept me from, I think, making some bad decisions. But that's not that I didn't have moments of like secret stuff, you know, like when computers and phones and Wi-Fi, you know, those were just coming into huge existence is when I first started traveling as like a 19, 20-year-old kid. You give a 20-year-old kid a computer and Wi-Fi in hotel rooms by himself, like you're going to do stupid stuff, you know, and there's that time in my life where it's like, man, I'm like guilt and shame and having to confess and get through that. And like the Lord really used that to make me realize again how great his grace is in those early 20 years of just like creating this thing of like, I'm going to choose you. I'm going to choose purity. I'm going to choose holiness, you know? And so there's moments of like wrestling, but above all that, it never was like, I never had a disbelief in God. I always have had a really strong just sense of his existence, of his love for me, that he is the best for me. And so that thankfully hasn't been a wavering thing. I've wavered in my trust of humans and my idea of like certain, you know, I grew up thinking the way I grew up and the church I grew up in was the right way. I grew, you know, and then after you kind of grow up, you kind of, maybe some things get deconstructed. Like, was that Jesus or was that tradition? And was this what the Bible teaches, or was this what this specific stream of the church teaches? And where do I stand in this? What's Jesus in all of this? And why did I think that about those kind of people, that they were more sinners than those kind of sinners? And why do I put these people in that kind of stepping back of like, okay, like what is tradition? What is culture? And what is Jesus? And I'm still asking that question. Even now, as like playing in arenas and like lights and people call themselves fans of me. And I'm just, and even dealing with that, like, man, like, okay, Jesus, how do I want to be you in this, and help me to be you in this. And when I think of the bigness of it, sometimes I can get like anxious of like, wow, am I doing everything right? And like, do I need to fix anything? I like when I think of in a big way, when I think of it a day-to-day thing of like, I just want to be generous and kind. I want my wife to have a ton of reason to respect me and to love me and to be proud of me. I want my kids to see Jesus in me. I want to talk about Jesus on a podcast. That's what I'm doing today. I want to ask the barista how they're doing. You know, I just want to be, it's a day-to-day, like, it's like what Jesus said is like, don't worry about tomorrow. Today is sufficient for itself. Just walk in the grace of God today. And I'm answering like 17 questions right now.
No, you're good, man. You're flowing. You should have your own podcast. I really mean that. I feel like everyone should have their own podcast. Okay, so what I love about what you're saying is that you essentially are telling me, hey, I was just faithful to what was in front of me.
Trying to be.
And I was content with wherever the chips will fall.
That's a gift I do think God has given me, is a sense of contentment.
Yeah, because I think contentment is the pathway to flourishing. If you could first be content with wherever you are and whatever whatever season you're in, whatever platform you have, whatever it is, I think that's the heart that God can work with, right? Because if you're always like, I need more, I want a bigger platform, I need this, I need that. And when you just go, you know what, Lord, I'm just happy. I'm just happy to be right where you have me. And it sounds like that was ultimately, because again, there's levels to it, right? Like you go from, hey, I'm leading in a church, to now churches are bringing me out, to now I'm going to conferences, to now I'm selling tickets to my own thing. And now it's like, boom, 20 years later, you know, you're like an overnight success, but really not, because anyone's been keeping up with your journey. Like, oh, no, it took so long to get to this place, and now you're in arenas. But it really does come back down to, you would be doing this regardless.
I would be doing it regardless. I'm thankful I've always had this sense of, this is way more than I could have dreamed. You know, when I was 20 years old and I sold 30,000 records out of the back of my car, and I could buy as many PlayStation games as I wanted, I'm like, this is more than I could have dreamed, you know? Like, this is exceedingly abundantly. And then same thing, and fast forward, like, to the arenas on the Summer Worship Nights tour, people are accepting Jesus all over the place. People are singing these songs. This is beyond what I could have ever dreamed. But that contentment, I also want to say, like, didn't mean that I didn't have ambition. Didn't mean that I'm a heart. I love working hard. I love seeing things grow and connect. But like, working hard, I try. Sometimes it comes out of a place. If ever it's at an unhealthy place, for me, it's like insecurity and fear. It's not like, it's like, is this going to be around tomorrow? If it's not, like, this is how I provide for my family. Better keep pushing those reels out, or better keep saying yes to something, because who knows if it's going to be. It's that fear.
That's that scarcity mindset.
Yeah, like, that's which is what I grew up with.
Most folks who I think grow up the way we grew up, right? Like you grew up 1,200 square foot condo, right? I grew up, my father wasn't in my life, single mom. When God starts blessing the things we're doing, it definitely is like, all right, Lord, when is this going to be over? Right? Like, because this could be gone at any moment. Like, it is some of that scarcity of just growing up without much, and then just like, dude, this is beyond my wildest dreams. This is nuts. Hey, if you want to see the extended version of this podcast, completely unedited, consider partnering with us in our online community for as little as $5 a month. In exchange, you get access to these podcasts as we stream them live before anyone else gets to see them. You get access to the replay of our daily after party streams, access to our private Discord server, access to discount codes, and so much more. So help us continue contextualizing the gospel through media, podcasting, and YouTube, and partner with us for as little as $5 a month. Also, be sure to follow us on the Spotify podcast app, on Facebook, and on Instagram. We're constantly posting content there that I think you'll find extremely valuable. All right? I'll see you over there. Peace.